Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Fitness. Today I'm going to show you some exercises and movements to help get you in shape for kayaking, specifically whitewater kayak. What I've done, I went out to the Whitewater Center, I kayaked for about 3 to 4 hours, pretty hardcore, came back the very next day, the muscle groups that were sore, I developed this plan to help keep those muscles in shape. Some of these exercises you can do in the water, most of these exercises you can do from home, with just very little equipment. These are simple. I have some easy to follow steps. I'll show you a video demonstration of every single exercise I'm going to do here. After we've been kayaking for a while, my buddies complained of either low back, hip, maybe shoulder pain. Having really good overall fitness isn't going to make you an instantly better kayaker. You're just going to be able to do the poor skills that you have now with better energy. So, what's going to happen? You're going to be able to get out of your way. You can train longer, practice harder, and be able to do it again tomorrow without being so sore. I'm really not going to be teaching kayaking skills. I'll be showing you some exercises and movements so that you can get out of your own way to improve your time on the water. Like always, before I continue, I always remind you, consult with your healthcare provider first before you start any new diet, nutrition, or exercise program. All right, let's get out here and try it. Come on. So I think most injuries come from lack of skill, not knowing how to properly row a kayak, not knowing how to properly complete a paddle stroke, trying to power through a movement rather than using a skill. I think overall fitness and flexibility is crucial. One thing to mention here is the mental game behind kayaking. Being able to relax and breathe. Don't hold your breath unless you're under the water. That's when you need to be holding your breath. When you're going into a wave, don't just hold up, anticipating that you're going to be under the water. Breathe. Your body's pretty good at knowing when to stop breathing and to hold its breath. I think it's really a newbie thing to want to constantly fear that you're going to be under the water, and then once you're under the water, oh my gosh, I gotta get my breath. So you hurry up to roll, and you injure yourself, or you rip out of the kayak too soon. Now it's you, your boat, and your paddle are floating separately down the river instead of you all being together like you're supposed to be. Relax, breathe, do intentional breathing. This video is going to use very little equipment. I'll use this wobble board. It'll kind of simulate being in a kayak because it wobbles back and forth. I'll use some of these resistance bands. Of course, a link to both of these will be down in the description of the show. Hop over to Amazon, check these out, pick some up for yourself. They're really great. What we're going to do first, I'm going to warm up our hips. I'm going to put my feet down on the mat. Hopefully you can see that. Feet are on the mat. I'm going to try to keep my feet stationary, and I'm going to sit up straight. I don't want to slouch over. I can't stand seeing people slouching in their kayaks. It looks ridiculous, and it's bad posture, and it's bad for you. Keep my feet straight. I'm going to switch knees, pointing this direction, knees pointing that direction. The idea is you should be opening up these hips, your hip flexors, quite well during this. Now, next move. I'm going to lean back, similar to a back deck roll, if you know what that is. I'm going to lean back, and my right hand's back here, and I'm going to push up just a little bit. Go to the next side. Left is down. Each time I go, I might stretch it a little bit further. That warms up or works out basically all the muscle groups you use during a kayak roll. All right, next we are definitely going to use some resistance bands. Okay, so your first roll you learned was probably the slice, I think that's what it's called. It's where you lean up really far and you do this arcing back thing. It's great, it's somewhat easy. We're gonna kind of do that on dry land. How do you do that? So I'm gonna use your resistance band for this. I'm gonna go ahead and try to pin this left hand in. I'm gonna lean far forward with this right hand, like you would for your setup portion of your kayak roll. And then I'm going to lean back. Now, these weights I have anchored down here are very important. I can't do this very well without being anchored. Lean back, come back up. And I'm going in a round motion. I'm not necessarily going straight back. Of course, we all know that rowing is a part of kayaking. What's a row? It's a pull exercise. So you're going to be pulling these resistance bands. It's important to work both your push and your pull movements. In a kayak, you don't necessarily want to backstroke because you'll lose momentum. If possible, all your strokes should be moving you down the river. So if you have to turn hard left, you can do a J stroke, which is what we call it. You reach out and you I said I wasn't going to be doing skill. so I'll try to avoid that. The bands I'm using here are the flat bands. I really wouldn't do this with the round bands. I say that in every video I do like this because I don't want those to roll off my feet, and they will smack you in the face if they come off your feet. So use the flat bands. Now I can turn this in, this grip, and now it's a bicep workout. Still a row if I bring my elbows back. Okay, so this one is similar to a C-to-C roll. The reason I say it's like a C-to-C roll because when you're doing a C-to-C roll for a kayak to flip it back up, you're basically taking your arms like this, making a C on this side of the boat, and flipping over to this side. Of course, there's a hip snap involved, and your head has to stay down. But for this, I'm going to basically set up my C-to-C, pin the ground side down with my hand, and just do a little bit of tricep extension. But if you're doing that movement, make sure you're doing it very little, very minimal weight. I don't want any injuries this way because your spine is bent here. We shouldn't be doing any exercise with a bent spine, but in kayaking, when you're rolling, you're turning around. Now we can also make this similar to our hip exercise we're doing. I got C here, C here, C here. If you want to make it fancy, go opposite. People will say, oh, when they'll argue, what's the best kayak roll? What kayak roll do you do? Well, honestly, whatever roll gets the breathing in, back out of the water. It doesn't matter whether it's slice or seat or back deck or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. I want this part that breathes air back on top where it can breathe air. Okay, so I'm in my cage for this one. I'm going to use the bands to work my low back and my hips on both sides if you do it right. So this is similar exercise to the hip machines you probably have seen in the gym. Of course, we always want it to be symmetric, so whatever I do to the right side, I also want to work the left. This band is not the same as that one, but for this video purpose, it's going to work. Triceps are another muscle group that's commonly sore after kayaking. Tricep extensions can be done with weights, with machines, or with these resistance bands. One hand, two hands with a little ab crunch. There's all sorts of things you can do to help work your triceps. Cool thing about the resistance bands is you can attach them at any level and work your triceps at many, many different angles. I know I said I wasn't going to teach skill, but your paddle stroke shouldn't be all tricep anyway. You should be pulling it to you, not just like working your tricep. The number one muscle group for me that was sore when I first started kayaking was my brachialis and my tricep in here. But that was just from being so tense and popping the water instead of actually going into an actual brace. Just goes back to the beginning of the video. Relax, get out of your own head, breathe. You know your kayak isn't stable, it doesn't sit flat in the water, it moves with the water because it's floating. So that's what this is for. Swivel board, I'm going to set about, the center of the board is now set about 12 inches behind this resistance band. This is similar to being in a kayak. The way it feels, the way it moves back and forth, it wiggles similar to being in a kayak. Now, the resistance band is my paddle. I can push and pull. When I get in the boat the first time, before I actually start hitting to the rapids, I will do a pull, I'll do a push. So I'm not just pulling or pushing while I'm in a kayak. I'm doing both. So doing this exercise is a great way to imitate actually being on the water doing this. Want to make it harder? Pick your feet up off the ground so that you don't have that stability. Now I'm doing a push, pull, and a great core exercise as well. Good gracious. When you're in your whitewater kayak, or really any kayak in general, you don't necessarily have to use your paddles to turn. You can lean the boat left or right. I think it's a great skill to learn on flat water. I'll get my momentum up and I'll lean to the left and get the boat to turn without moving my head or using the paddle. It'll turn one direction. But one way to practice that hip movement, having to pick up the boat with one hip, is to use these resistance bands. Again, this time I have an anchor to the ground and I'm just going to bring my leg up. Notice I have my hand here. This keeps it from rolling off my knee. As I go down like this, it's probably eventually going to slide off. I can also do the same thing. Similar movement. I'm going to pull it up, rotate it back. It's really nice to have a rack like this because I can use this to assist with my balance. Remember, I said it before, what we do to the left side, we're going to do to the right as well. Alright guys, that's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are awesome. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. Subscribe. Subscription is free. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss any videos like this. On this side will be a button. Click that. It'll help you subscribe. On this side is a link to one of my previous videos about, it's a shoe comparison video. I compare these awesome Astrals against a fantastic brand called Merrell. Give that video a watch. It's pretty cool. Click that like button and share me with your friends. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work.